Good morning, Luther Bros Productions viewers, or potential viewer. I'm not sure if I get any of those. I'm joking, I do. Today's video is going to be a little different. This script was written a long time ago by the guy, if you remember in the first video, he was the one who me and him were going to create this channel together. But he wrote the script a long time ago. This is actually supposed to be our first video, but that never happened, so I've decided I'm going to go use the script, so that way it's just not sitting in my document section on my computer. So who was Martin Luther? For those of whom who don't know, he was a German, and he was born on November 10th, 1483, and died February 18th, 1546. At this time, the papacy was doing what it does best, interfering with European affairs. Yeah. The borders at the time of Martin Luther, just around the time of the Holy Roman Empire, it was not holy, nor was it Roman. Those borders were nasty. There was like a gazillion provinces that were its own country, whatever. It was nasty. And Martin Luther, a lot of people think of him as just an average man, but no. He had connections. He had connections to the Prince of Saxony, which gave him a lot of power. And, yeah. So, he was born in Eisleben. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If any German or, people who understand German are watching this, I apologize. Saxony, which is in modern Germany. And then he grows up, and then he receives a liberal arts degree, then a master's degree, and then begins law school. And then one day, while he was walking on a road, there was a humongous thunderstorm that happened, and it scared him so much, and he fell down, and he was like, I'll become a monk, I'll become a monk. So he's praying to God to save him from this thunderstorm. It was bad. And then in 1505, sorry, he becomes a monk. And then 1512, he received a doctorate and entered as a professor of biblical studies in also 1512. So he wasn't dumb or stupid by any means. He was a highly respected professor of theology. So he's not stupid. So sola fide is actually not something that's stupid. It's pretty based in biblical. If you read what Paul wrote. Anyways, this is a tangent. Yeah, and then he published his religious views. Stuff, pretty based stuff. And finally, in 1517, he finds out that a specific religious leader, the Pope, supposedly said that you could buy your way into heaven, or at least buy your way out of purgatory. And that initiates his desire to nail a long list of theses. Perhaps there was 95 of them. On the local church door in Wittenberg, Germany, where he was studying. And it's 95 separate teachings of why the Catholic Church and the Pope are wrong about indulgences and papal infallibility and yada yada yada, and a whole bunch of other things. And then the next year, Luther was now convinced in salvation through divine grace alone. And it makes perfect sense, because without God's grace, there would be no salvation. There should be no point of contestant. No point of contestant on grace alone. Because it's all God's grace. God's grace and mercy is the reason we can have salvation. I don't get it, but I don't know about that one, pal. And, yeah. And then in 1518, the Pope issued a document about indulgences. And in 1520, Luther's calm and collected response was to said document was to just set it on fire. Honestly, I would have done the same, let's be honest. Probably not. And then in response, Pope Leo X calls Luther a heretic and goes, anathema! And is like, ooh. And then, just excommunicates him. Excommunicates Luther just as he did to the East in 1054. And then in early 1521, German King Charles V hears about how the Pope now wants to burn this heretic and is like, hey, none of my people are going to be convicted without a proper hearing. And you know what? That's pretty solid. Like, Luther had connections. He wasn't just some German guy with a printer. He knew powerful people, and he was very smart. And then he was summoned to a place called, and he was summoned. It was called the Diet of Worms in Germany, and his accusers tell him to say that all of his books are wrong. And well, Luther summed it up into, I think, 2 or 3 categories, and he said, 1 is where I will not recant. 2 is where I may have spoken a little too harshly, and 3 is like, yeah, I can possibly remove those, because obviously, Martin Luther is not infallible, and he can realize the error of his ways, and he did for a few of his writings. He was like, I may have spoken a little too harshly here, and in this specific writing, but the point still stands. And then King Charles V declared Luther an outlaw. And so the local ruler, Frederick III of Saxony, hid Luther, which gave him a lot of time to translate the New Testament from Latin to German so the German people could read the Bible. Yeah, apparently the Catholic Church didn't like that too much, because if you start reading the Bible, you're going to be Lutheran. Anyway, I apologize. Alright, yeah. And then after all of this, and before his death, in 1546, there was a whole bunch of other reformers, such as John Calvin, whose views on the Eucharist were rejected by Luther, and Huldrych Zwingli, whose views on the Eucharist were rejected by Luther, and Philip Melanchthon, who, actually, they were chill. Luther and Melanchthon are tight in terms of friendship. Philip Melanchthon was essentially his protege. And except for some minor differences, obviously you're not going to agree 100% with absolutely anyone. I can agree 99% with somebody, but like that 1%, it could be a big... Anyway, regardless. No. They were great friends. And that 1% was, honestly, it's like their approaches to debate was like the only reason that they really disagreed. And honestly, that is just Martin Luther's life. And I got this video done 7 minutes. Speed run! No, it was not speed run. It was... yeah, but believe it or not, I followed a script. Yeah, I don't generally do that, so this is new. I'm sure many of the people in the comments section, they're going to be like, oh, he used a script. Oh! Yes, I did. But, thus concludes today's video. Oh yeah, we're going to post this as soon as possible, and it should be done soon. It is now 10:31 in the morning, Central Time Zone. We did it, boys. We're gonna keep up with the weekly upload schedule. We're gonna keep trying. We're gonna figure it out. I've done a few things to make sure that I should have more time to work on videos, but I say good morning and God bless, my friends.